All right, this is going to be a pretty cool video because we're going to look at, for the first time, we're going to look at a very powerful technology in web design, something called CSS. Just in case you don't know, in a nutshell, CSS is the sister language to HTML that allows you to add style to your web pages. So what do I mean by adding style? I'm talking about changing fonts, changing font sizes, adding color to your pages, background colors, background images, positioning elements on your page, elements whether it be text or paragraphs or images. So CSS is a very, very powerful part of web design, and it's one of the key linchpins, if you will. It's something you have to learn. So to give you an idea, CSS will take something like this and it can turn it into something like this. As you might imagine, CSS is very important and it's something you got to learn. That said, this is a Dreamweaver CS3 video and not a dedicated CSS video, so I'm going to concentrate on the CSS tools in Dreamweaver. Along the way, I'll throw in here and there some CSS concepts that you should know, but again, we're going to be concentrating on how Dreamweaver gives you access to the CSS language. Like so many other things in Dreamweaver, we have many different places where we can access the CSS capabilities. So let's start off by popping open our familiar page here. And I'm just going to point out a few things. So let me just highlight a piece of text. So right here, let's go down to the Properties panel. You see you have a CSS button, which will allow us to open up the CSS panel. We also have some drop-down lists that gives us access to the CSS related stuff. Just so that you know, whenever you see style, CSS, style sheet, that's all related to CSS. We go way up here in our panels here, you notice here we got the CSS panel. Now if you don't see a CSS panel, you can go into Window and you can select it here and the CSS panel pops open. And of course we have all kinds of options in here which we're going to get into in time. Finally, if we come up here, we have some options up here. Yes, it's in the text drop-down option. It's in the, of course, CSS styles, and it's different from style here. So anyhow, we're going to get into this and with some practical work, and along the way, this stuff will become much more understandable. Actually, you know what? Let me just select this image. As you can see here, we even have, class. Remember I told you class has to do with CSS. Here again, we have the option of applying CSS to our image. That said, let's select a piece of text, and we're going to start off by, we can go here. We can hit the CSS button, which will open up the CSS panel. And once here, let's you can collapse and open these things, of course. And what we're going to do is we're going to go down here, and we have a few options. We have new style rule, new CSS rule, attach style sheet. Well, we'll get into what the style sheet is later on, but let's just start with something practical. So I click that button, and we have the new CSS rule dialog box that opens. And it sets a default to this thing called class. And we're going to get into class and tag and advance very quickly. So what we want to do is we want to, let's give it a name. I'm going to call it header 1. Right, so we're naming this class. Now, if you don't worry, just follow along and you'll understand soon. So down here you got define in. CSS rules is just code, right? CSS is just code, just like HTML is just code. And one of the things you can do with CSS, you can actually put all your CSS code rather in a separate document, and then you would link to that document from your web page so that the CSS will do its magic on your page. Along the way, if any of this stuff is unclear, don't worry, just go with it. We'll clear up as we actually get into doing things. So what am I going to do now is I'm actually going to say this document only. So what this does, it will get, Dreamweaver will then insert the CSS into this page only as opposed to a separate style sheet. And the reason I'm doing this is because it's just simpler for now. So first thing that we did is we selected the selector type, and we'll get into this. And I said, take a class, we'll make it a class. And I gave it the name of header1. Could have called it anything I want. I just wanted to call it header1 for now. And I said, let's define this in this document only. So what that means, that Dreamweaver is going to write this CSS code in our index.html page. So I just hit OK. And our CSS rule definition for .header1 pops up. So what is this? This is basically Dreamweaver's tool to allow you to write CSS rules. Instead of you having to write it by hand, Dreamweaver will write it for you. So let's say, remember I selected a piece of text. So header1 is going to be CSS rules, CSS style, CSS code that will affect the look of our headers. Obviously, we're talking about a font here. So we can leave it to the page default font, or we could choose one of these other fonts. I'm going to choose another font just for the sake of making it look funkier. So I'm going to choose Verdana Arial Helvetica. So you know your HTML. Reason you have the 3 is because first it's going to try and display the header 1 with Verdana. If it can't find that font, it will go to Arial. If it can't find that font, it will go Helvetica. And if it can't find that font, it will go to style font called sans serif. If you don't know this with sans serif, it's just anyway, forget about sans serif. But basically, that's why you got 3 in a row, because it tries to find this font on the guy's system when you use your web page, can't find it, goes to this one, and so on. That's why they're always 3 in a row, 3 in a row. So I'm going to go with Verdana for no particular reason. We can set the size. We can set it in pixels. We can set it in named sizes. And people argue with you which one is best. Again, this is beyond the scope of this video, but I'm just going to go with, since I want it to be a big header, I'm going to say 18 pixels. Of course, you can change the units of measurement. This is pixels, then you got centimeters, and you got all kinds of different sizes. Again, beyond the scope of this video at this time. So we're just going to go with pixels. So the text, any text what has the class.header1 applied to it will have a size of 18. If that doesn't make sense, again, once we use it, you'll see what I mean. We can set a style. We can say make it italic, oblique. Let's leave it normal. You could actually add line heights to it, which we'll get into later. You can underline it. You can overline it. You can make it blank. You can do all kinds of different things. There's also weight. You can make it bold, lighter. You can actually set the boldness by a number here. So we're just going to leave it, you know what, just for the sake of our video, I'll say weight 400. In case you can tell CSS, which is kind of cool, no matter what you type in, to make it all capital or make it all lowercase or all uppercase, or leave it. Finally, you can you click on this little box here, the little arrow, and you can give it a color. So I'm going to give it a nice I won't do puke green. How about dark orange? Okay, that's it for now. So this, now if you look at the CSS rule definition box, okay, I'm not going to get into this now. I'll get back to this stuff later. But so we selected our rules for the .header1 style. I'm just going to hit apply, and I'm going to hit OK. So you see Dreamweaver has updated our page, and we know that because if you look, you see the little star here. That means the page has changed, and that's Dreamweaver telling us that if we want to save those changes, we got to press save. So let's go into code and see what Dreamweaver has done. I'm going to minimize this properties window here. And if you look up here, this is some CSS code. This probably looks like gibberish to you, but don't worry about it. We will get into some of this anyway. And I just wanted you to know and understand for this first video of this CSS series in the Dreamweaver course that Dreamweaver, through that dialog box, has now inserted CSS code into our pages. So let's go back to design mode. I'm going to save this file, save. So let's pop open our properties again. So let's select some text. Now I just hold my mouse cursor, select it. And if we go down in the properties box, the style drop-down menu, look here. And there is our style called header1, which is nice. Dreamweaver actually renders in the drop-down list the way the font, the style affects the text right there, so we get an idea of what we're looking at. So I'm going to hit header1. So I click it, and as you can see, our header now is styled with that particular CSS code. So I'm going to hit save again. And we're going to just do a quick little preview in the browser so you get an idea. So there you go, simple, but with just a little bit of CSS, we styled our pages.